as a community can do better.
What do you want to tell your children about this moment?
We need reforms.
From the All Indiana Podcast Network, we stand together.
Everybody's here together, black, white, brown, everybody.
A platform for progress in our community.
We need to do a better job.
I want to show that we can be peaceful.
This is just as much our fight as it is yours.
Discussing the problems of racial inequality and solutions to combat discrimination in a conversation for change.
We'll be able to build on this.
I never in a million years thought I would embrace a cop like that.
From Wish TV, we stand together.
As the Indiana Black Expo celebrates 50 years, the president and CEO has many reasons to celebrate, yet at the same time understands there is a road ahead that still needs to be traveled. The day-to-day operations as well as special programs fall under her helm, including the Summer Celebration and Circle City Classic. And though this year is much different with COVID-19, the evolution continues to make a stronger impact on Indiana families. Tanya McKinzie shares that we have to be careful that counterproductive actions do not overshadow the real issue at hand that was brought to the forefront after the death of George Floyd.
Some heavy topics of late that we've all been dealing with, and most recently, of course, the death of George Floyd and what it has sparked globally, really. Why do you think his death in particular has had such a huge impact?
I honestly couldn't watch it for a couple of days after it got out, just because I knew that my heart wouldn't be able to take it. And so it took a couple of days for me to watch the video. And as a mother, particularly of a Black male, as a sister of Black males, just even thinking about just his family and everything that he went through in those last seconds of his life. Hard to process. And as a parent, just very hard to explain it to, a 16-year-old that I have that pretty much said, Mommy, I don't understand. It's like I'm scared to be Black right now in America. And so very difficult conversations to have, particularly as a parent, when you're trying to process how a human being can treat another human being to that effect. And I think this was different. And even, I would say, worse than what we've seen, just because of the, almost 9 minutes of, putting a knee on someone's neck that's not resisting.
Did watching that video and having to talk to your son about it, did it remind you of circumstances through your life where you felt scared for yourself or for people who you love? I've been stopped by the police, for traffic violations, and even when I've had my children in the car, and there's a fear. There's a fear in our community that we get, unfortunately. I mean, because, I have a lot of friends that are police officers that I really respect and appreciate and love. But there is this fear, and it's an expected fear with what you see happening across the country. And so you always have this thought in the back of your mind that it could be you, or it could be someone close to you. And, it's just an unfortunate reality for, Black America right now. What did you tell your son?
My daughter is 16. My son is 24. My son does not, lives in Los Angeles. And, we talked through it. We watched the news every day as well as my, 16-year-old. And, a lot of it was silence. But I've always had the conversations with my son when he's left the house. Just because as a mother, you have that fear. You want him to come home. There have been many nights where you can't sleep just because until he walks back into back in the door. And so this is not a new conversation. We've had a conversation ever since he was young, growing up, that, this is how you handle yourself when you're out there. And it's unfortunate because we shouldn't have to transition or transfer that responsibility to the community. I mean, it's an officer's job to uphold the Constitution and the law to protect. And so having to have that conversation, I'm angry about having to have that conversation because I don't think it's right. But it's a conversation that is
it happens in, a lot of households, particularly African-American households across the country.
And I read your statement that you submitted through the Indiana Black Expo about how this has impacted you and the rest of the Black Hoosiers that we have here and all across the country for that matter. You mentioned several times the criminal justice system and not just focusing on the police force, which is a lot of people doing right now. What do you think needs to happen within the criminal justice system? So as you just mentioned, the law has a responsibility to uphold rights of people as well.
We talk about policy change as it relates specifically to the criminal justice system. It's a matter of just upholding the Constitution and the law. You have to, you have to arrest and you have to charge. You have to prosecute. And so all throughout that entire process, we have to make sure that systemic racism doesn't exist and that justice will be served. And there's a lot of things that can change. But, it's not even about policy. Sometimes it's just about having the courage to do the right thing and to make sure that justice is served. And so that's something that we definitely have to fix as it relates to our criminal justice system. But there's also systemic racism in all other systems that lead to the criminal justice system that we have to fix. We have to look at the education system. And, at one point, Indiana was tied as the third country in the state for the suspension and expulsions of African-American males. And so there's systemic and implicit biases as it relates to that. And so, we have to look at this across the board, and it's been ingrained in systems for years.
And how does that change?
It has to change, and I think it's a start. I am so appreciative, and I'm so proud of all of the young folks, the multi-generational, the multicultural protests, and just the noise and the statement that has been made and continues to be made across the country and here in Indianapolis and throughout the state. But we have to organize, and we got to come together to make sure that it is going to take the powers that be, right? A lot of folks often look at, Indiana Black Expo or the Indianapolis Urban League or minority-led institutions for change, but we can't do it without people in power to make that change. And so that's a start. We are starting to have conversations where folks are hearing us, but now it's a matter of implementation and changing policies at the employer level for diversity and inclusion and making sure folks are at the table that look like me and look like other people. And so it's an organized strategic effort, but we can't do it alone. We need everyone. We need corporate America. We need government. We need our community. It's going to take all of us to get there.
And what about the people within the community who say, well, all lives matter, and who say maybe that systemic racism doesn't exist? What is your message to them?
All lives may matter, but right now the issue is Black lives aren't mattering. And so that's why the slogan is on Black lives, because they are the folks who aren't mattering right now. And so it's not a dig at our white brothers and sisters or, anyone else. It's just a matter that we want to matter. And so for those who say racism doesn't exist, they're not looking. Or they're ignoring it and they just don't know. It could really be ignorance and not having knowledge about it. But it definitely, white privilege is there. And it is something that we have to address, and we have to first acknowledge it.
And you can listen to all of our Stand Together podcasts and series anytime. You can find tonight's episode and others online on the AllIndianaPodcastNetwork.com.
From Wish TV, we stand together. Watch, read, listen, and be a part of the conversation online at wishtv.com and when you follow Wish TV on Facebook. Find more episodes of We Stand Together and other podcasts from Wish TV online anytime at AllIndianaPodcastNetwork.com. AllIndianaPodcastNetwork.com.